to tell you what I believe in my heart that God has given me. So Billy Graham says one of his favorite stories is of a husband who was not very attentive to his wife. But one day he started feeling guilty about not paying attention to her and decided he's going to change. So on his way home, he stopped by, bought a big box of candy, went by a florist and bought some flowers. And he's going to surprise his wife. Well, when he walks up to the door and she opens the door, she just bursts into tears as she sees the flowers and the candy. And she said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And she said, "Oh, honey, oh, Harry, everything went wrong today. We had a leak in the plumbing, the kids were terrible, the house is a wreck, and now you've come home drunk." That's what some of our wives would think if we brought them flowers or candy, right? Yeah, don't let that happen to you. Yeah, hallelujah. There's a great cartoon years ago. It's called a woman that her hair was just in disarray. I mean, she was a mess. Kids were everywhere. The house was absolute shamble. Then her husband comes home from work, all neatly dressed with his coat and tie, carrying his briefcase. She takes one look at him, and he looks at her with a big question mark on his face. And she says, "You come home every afternoon and you ask me, what have you done all day? Well, today I didn't do it, so here it is." I don't think there's a task, a calling, a position that is any more difficult than that of being a mother. I hope this message will reflect that today, how my heart goes out to you mothers, all you ladies for that matter, but especially to those who are moms. For you see, mothers remember things that everybody else forgets. They remember things that everyone else forgets. In Luke chapter 2, every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. And after the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking that he was with their company, they traveled on for a day. And then they began looking for Jesus among their relatives and friends, but they could not find him. So they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. And after 3 days more, they found him in the temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." Jesus said to her, Why are you searching for me? Didn't you know that I had to be in my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother remembered all these things in her heart. She never forgot. What are some of the things moms remember that everybody else forgets? Come on, ladies, talk to me. What do you remember about your kids that most people don't think about? Come on. Don't remember anything? How about first steps? First word. First tooth. Absolutely. If you're a breastfeeding mother, you know all about that, right? First day at school, first heartbreak, first disappointment, first girlfriend, list goes on and on and on. They remember the day also that you said goodbye to your childhood. I'm reminded of a story. I've shared this several times. Pardon me. I've shared this several times through the years, but it's one of my favorite stories about a young girl who grew up. And one day her father went into her bedroom and she was in there with all her Barbie dolls laying on the bed. and all the clothes and all that, and she was neatly putting them away in sacks. And he said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I don't play with them anymore, and I won't be needing them from now on." And he said at that moment, he realized that his little girl was no longer a little girl. She was a young lady. And life changed from that moment. And it did for all of you, didn't it? When you put away your girls' Barbie dolls and you put away the Tonka toys for the boys and the Hot Wheels and all those things went in boxes in a closet, knowing that they would never be used again. But you didn't throw them away because they were memories to you that you never will forget. One of my favorite animated movies is Toy Story, number one, first one. You remember the story of Buzz Lightyear and Woody? They were Andy's toys, and Andy played with them every single day of his life. I mean, he loved Woody and he loved Buzz Lightyear. But there came a time when Andy, and this is a Toy Story backdrop, this is the backstory. There came a time when Andy grew up and he was no longer interested in playing with those toys. And the whole gist of the entire story is how that Woody and Buzz can attract Andy's attention one more time. They didn't want to be put aside and left in a box. Nobody wants to be forgotten. No one wants to be taken for granted. Memories are the treasures that no one can ever take away from us. You mothers know well. Irma Bonbeck wrote a book once. She called it, she says that on the day that God created women, he had already worked a long overtime. And an angel came up to him and said, "Lord, you're sure spending a lot of time with this one." The Lord answered the angel and said, "Have you read the specs on this model? She's supposed to be completely washable, but not plastic. She has to have 180 moving parts. All of them must be replaceable. She has to have a kiss that will heal everything from a broken leg to a broken heart. She is to have a lap that will disappear when she stands up. She is to be able to function on black coffee and leftovers. And she is supposed to have 6 pairs of hands." And the angel said, 6 pairs of hands? That's impossible, Lord. He said, "Well, it's not the 6 pair of hands that bothers me. It's the 3 sets of eyes that she has. She's supposed to have 1 pair that can see through closed doors so that she knows what's going on even though she hasn't been told." Man, that is the truth if I ever spoke it. Nobody knows like Mama does. And she has another pair for the back of her head so that she can see things that she's not supposed to see. And then she has a pair in her forehead that she can see and look right into the heart of a child who has made awful mistakes, and without saying a word, give him comfort and understanding with just a glance. He said, "That's too much. You can't put all that in one model. Why don't you rest a while, and we'll come back and do this tomorrow?" And he said, "No, I can't. I'm close to creating someone very much like myself. I've already come up with a model who can heal herself when she is sick, who can feed a family of 6 with 1 pound of hamburger, who can persuade a 9-year-old to take a shower." Then the angel looked at the model motherhood a little more closely, and he said, "She sure is soft." He said, "Oh, but she's tough. You'd be surprised what she can do and what she can handle." "Can she think?" the angel said. "Oh, not only can she think, but she can reason, she can compromise, she can persuade." And then the angel reached over and touched her cheek. "This one has a leak," he said to the Lord. "I told you couldn't put that much in one model." "That's not a leak," says the Lord. "That's a tear." And the angel said, "Well, what is a tear?" "Well, it's for joy and sadness and sorrow and disappointment and pride, a lot of things." "You're a genius," the angel said to God, "to create that." And the Lord said to him, "I didn't put it there. She did." Nobody like mothers. They remember things that everybody else forgets. Second thing I will tell you this morning, my meditation, is that mothers won't always feel part of their children's lives. In Mark chapter 3, Jesus is teaching one day, and his mother and his brothers arrived and standing outside the house. They sent someone in to call him, and the crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your mother and your brothers are waiting outside." Jesus said, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" Then he looked at those seated in the circle around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my mother, my sister, and my brother." That's one of the most difficult sayings in Scripture that Jesus made, in my opinion. Because in this particular passage, he ignored his mom. Every mother remembers the day when you realized that you weren't the number one girl in your son's life anymore, or that your daughter had rather be with her friends than to hang out with you. Why do mothers feel abandoned? This is the great question that I don't think very many people talk about, but they do. When they've spent all their lives giving themselves away to the ones they love. They find it difficult when your own children can't find the time to spend just an hour with you. No one knows of the humanness of a child like a mother. While others see you walking on water, she sees you walking across the floor with mud on your shoes and loves you anyway. Can you feel the pathos of Mary that day when she heard Jesus say, "Who are my mother and my brother?" She's standing within earshot of him. She thinks, did I mean nothing to this man, my son, my oldest, my special boy? It is a fact of life that we raise them up to release them to do their life's work, all of them. The Bible said, "A man shall leave his father and mother, shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh." They'll no longer be at home with you, mom and dad, no longer stay at our house. They'll be on their own, making their own life, their own future. It's hard to become second or third in your child's life, or just to get an honorable mention sometimes. I kind of see it in my mind as people riding on a bus. When you start out life, you're in the front seat. Mom, you're the driver. Then dad comes along and he kind of takes over. The kids get a little older and he's directing traffic. You're sitting in the front row and kids are over here with you. And one day, somebody stands up and said, "Mom, could you move back a seat? I got a girlfriend. I got a boyfriend, and they need that seat." And then as life moves on, you get moved back further and further on the bus. And there's probably mothers here today that feel like you're sitting in the back row. And then one day the back door opens and you're not on the bus. That's life. That's reality. Sometimes we don't think about it that way, and I'm not making you sad. I'm just being honest, because I bet you there's people in this room that feel exactly like that. And you felt that way for a long time, and nobody's ever addressed it. Your kids don't even know it because they're totally oblivious to what you're going through. But I'm here to encourage you mothers today, because I want to tell you, I don't care if your kids call you today or send you a card or tell you Happy Mother's Day or I love you or not. If you've done your best to raise those kids to fear God and to walk with the Lord, you've been a great mother. Trust me. You're a great mom. You're a great mom. And you deserve recognition today. This is a special day. I've deviated from my series. I thought this isn't going to work on Mother's Day. I'm going to talk to these women because I feel like there's some people in this room that are hurting and need somebody to say, "I love you and I care." And we do, about all of you. I read a story that said for the first 5 years of my life, this woman said, "I considered motherhood a temporary condition, not a calling. It was a time in my life set aside for exhaustion and long hours, and I knew it would pass eventually. Then one afternoon, with 3 kids behind me in line, I came out of a supermarket pushing a cart to my car, and suddenly my toddler broke loose and headed for a bubblegum machine down the sidewalk saying, 'Gimme, gimme, gimme.' I just forgot about the cart. I ran after my son to try to get him away from the thing, and he was squeezing it like a tree. And he said, as I pulled his body away from the bubblegum machine, it toppled over, busted, and bubble gum went everywhere, all over the parking lot. She said, I was so embarrassed, I wanted to kill him. And I said, son, You will never watch a cartoon as long as you live. And you're never going to get any more bubble gum. So get in that car. I mean, she was on his case big time. And by this time, there's a crowd around him. And she realized that she is dressing her little boy down right in front of all these strangers. And suddenly he looks up and he sees these strange faces gawking at him. And he screams in terror and runs and grabs his mom around the leg. And this is what she said. In his helpless quest for comfort, he turned to the only one he trusted his emotions with, and that was me. He threw his arms around my knees and held on for dear life. I had humiliated him, chastised him, and berated him in front of those people, but I was all that he had at that moment. That single incident defined my role as a mother. It changed my life. I realized that I was a major force of influence in this child's life. And sometimes we forget how important stability is for our children. I've always told mine, she said, the easiest part of being a mother is giving birth. The hard part is showing up for work every day. I want to admonish all you mothers today. This is not a put down, it's not a beratement, it's not a chastisement. The greatest calling you've ever had in your life and will ever have is being a mother to your children. That is the greatest call. Better than being anything else you could possibly put your name on or put under your name. Your motherhood is God's design for you. Please do your very best to give it all you got, because it will one day change. It will change. And then the third meditation I have for you this morning is this. Mothers will always be there when everybody else walks away. I'll never forget my good friend Jim McNair told people various times, and he would witness to people about his conversion. He was a sheriff deputy here in Duncan, and he worked for the police force, and he was in the jail a lot. He transported prisoners, and Jim always made sure that he had an opportunity to witness to those guys that he was transporting wherever they went. He'd tell them his story of how far he drifted from God and the things that he did, but he said, I'm going to tell you something. The last person that'll ever walk out on your life is your mother. Don't you forget that. He would tell every one of them that. Jim didn't have an easy life, but he wanted them to know his mother was the most important person in his entire life. And it brings me to this story in John chapter 19 when it says, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother and his mother's sister, and Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. And when Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved, who was John, standing nearby, he said to his mother, dear mother, dear woman, here's your son. And he said to his disciple, John, here's your mother. What Jesus did that day on the cross as he died, he gave his mother's care to his best friend. John, take care of mom, because I won't be here. When it's all said and done, who do you think will be standing by you when your chips are down? I'll promise you it's probably going to be your mom. Even dad will say, good night. I've tried to get this kid right, and look what he's done. But his mother, she never gives up on him. She will never give up on you. I don't care how far you are from God this morning, your mother still has a hope and a belief that somewhere they're going to find the right way, and they're going to walk in it. Mother was with you when you came into this world, and she'll be there when you leave if she's alive. No one loves like a mother. No sorrow, nor danger, nor circumstance is too great for her to put up with while she's on this earth. It reminded me of something that's happening right now in our home. On the lane that goes from the road to our house, there's a gravel road. A few days ago, I noticed a kildee along that gravel road, and I said, she's got a nest here somewhere, because kildees always build their nest right in a rock pile. They do. And sure enough, I looked for a day or so, but I found that egg. I found those 4 speckled eggs laying in the midst of a bunch of rocks. And there's that little mother kildee every day. And here's what she did. Every time we'd come down that lane, she'd come off that nest and she'd flutter her tail, spread it as wide as she could, and she'd start dragging one of her wings like she was crippled. You know that's what birds do when they're trying to get everybody's attention away from their eggs. This happened once, it happened twice, it happens every day, sometimes several times a day. She wants to make sure we get away from her babies. I believe one of the greatest things God ever created was motherhood. Even in animals and birds of this world, they have that unique, innate desire to protect what is theirs. Mothers are the only people in this world who give life. They're the only ones who give. Oh, but I'm there. No. You helped start it, but you didn't get it. A mother's there to deliver that child every single time. Men don't have babies. I'm sorry about those transgender people. You can go to a gynecologist and you'll never get pregnant because you don't have the stuff to carry one. Mothers are life givers. They are life protectors. They are life keepers. And they love like no one else can love. I read a story about a man by the name of Solomon Rosenberg, whose family, including himself, were in a Nazi prison camp during World War II. Solomon, his wife, and his 2 sons were in that camp. And the rule was, as long as you can work, you can live. But when you can't work, you die. Rosenberg watched his mother and father marched off one day, and he never saw them again because they were too old. But every evening when he came back to the barracks, he would look for his wife and his 2 sons because he knew that his youngest son, David, was a weak child and he wasn't strong. And every day when he came back to the barracks, he would look for his wife and his boys. And one day he came into the barracks and he couldn't find any of them. And he finally found his oldest son, Joseph, huddled in a corner crying. And he said, "Joseph, please don't tell me." He said, "Oh, Daddy, today when we were in the field, David couldn't do his work. And the soldiers came and they took him, and he started to cry. But he said, Mom ran to his side and said, David, don't cry. It will be all right." And she went with him. We sometimes think that only good people have mothers that love them. That's not true. In the 5th chapter of Judges, a story when Deborah came to be a judge over Israel and help defeat the enemy, the Canaanites. The king of Canaan had dispatched his greatest general, Sisera, who had an army of 900 chariots plus footmen, to go in and plunder Israel. But you know the story, how the Kishon River overflowed and the wheels of the chariots got stuck in the mud and they couldn't move, and the Israelites came and they killed that army. Sisera got away. He escaped. And he found a tent in some place, and he ran into that tent, and it was just a woman there. And he said, "Hide me." She said, "Yes, sir, I'll hide you." And she knew who he was. "Here, get under these covers. I'll put these camel skins over you." And she covered him. Nobody knew where Sisera was, but she knew where he was. She thought, this man has wreaked havoc on our nation for years. For 20 years, they've done this to us. And she got a tent stake and drove it through his temple and killed him as he lay under that cover that day. And when the soldiers from Israel came looking for Sisera, she said, "He's here. He's over there. He's dead." And they sure enough found him. But then later, Deborah wrote a song about all this. And this is amazing. They defeated Sisera. They defeated the Canaanites. And this is the most unusual, unique verse in this song, because you would think only a mother could write that. Only a mother would write that. And this is what she wrote. "Through the window pierced Sisera's mother. Behind the lattice she cried out, 'Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why is the clatter of his chariots delayed? Then the wisest of her ladies answered her, said, "Oh, indeed, she keeps saying to herself, are they not finding the dividing the spoils, a girl or two for each man? Colorful garments as plunder for Sisera? Colorful garments embroidered, highly embroidered garments for my neck? All this as plunder." Deborah included this sobbing story of a mother looking out the window for her son, who was a soldier, who never came home. Even Sisera had a mother who loved him. Many years ago, 1995, April of that year, most of you will remember that if you were alive. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the Murrah building exploded. There was a U-Haul truck out front loaded with explosives, and it killed 170-something people. Destroyed the Murrah building. Now there's a monument there to honor those people. But Timothy McVeigh was the person who did it. They found him, put him in prison, had a trial, and he was waiting execution in 2001. People said, finally justice will be served. But let me say this. The person that was at his execution to watch this happen was his mother. Even though he was a criminal and he did some awful things, that was her son that was dying. I want to say this to you ladies this morning. I wish I could wipe away every tear from your eyes as a mom. I wish I could give all of you joy. I wish I could say that everybody has a wonderful mother, but I do not know that's true. Sometimes mothers make a lot of mistakes, and we realize that. We all make mistakes. My message today is for those of you who are sitting in this room, for those of you who are here. Whatever happened in the past, we can't change. But whatever happens tomorrow, you can. And as I was going through my notes and I was reaching out to my heart, I said, God, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? I've gone back through my notes years after years. This makes the 52nd Mother's Day I've preached since I've been pastor. I've preached a year's worth of Mother's Day messages in my ministry. Not all here, but most of them. 43 of them, actually, 42. And I've searched through my notes. I was like, I need to come up with something special. And I did a search in my documents, and this document came up in front of me, Meditations on Mother's Day, and I thought, I don't remember that. I clicked on that document, and I preached this message 25 years ago, right here. 25 years ago, I preached on this Meditations of Mother's Day. And I thought, that's it. That's my message tomorrow. I didn't even think about it past that. I said, that's what I'm going to say to these moms, because I want you ladies to know we love you. Still, you may be on the second, third row of your children's life, but listen, remember this. God called you. He gave you a love for those kids. Just keep loving them. That's your job. Just keep loving them, no matter what. Keep remembering those memories. We've got a treasure trove of memories. I found some stuff yesterday. We were going through a room in our house up we're moving out of, and Jan said, don't throw that away. I said, what is it? She told me what it was. I said, oh, my stars. I didn't realize that. She has things that you would laugh at. But every time she pulls those out, every time they're seen, it brings back a fond memory to her. Your memories of your life is sometimes all you have left. So visit them now and then, and don't forget how great it has been to be the person you are and to do what you've done. I applaud you, ladies. I applaud every mother in this room, every grandmother, every would-be mother. In a moment, we're going to ask every woman to stand. And I've got 3 young men who are going to come down here, and they're going to hold these baskets. And we want you all to come forward, every mother in this room, and the women who are not married. If you've never been married, or if you're married and you haven't had children, whatever, I want every woman 20 years and above to get a gift. Because we love you, ladies, every last one of you. And you're going to come down here and receive this, and I want you to stay in front for a few minutes, because here's what I want to do. And this came to me before I came up on the platform. We were singing. There are women perhaps in this church who have not been able to have a child. You want children, but you can't have children. I know 2 young ladies here this morning that had that happen to them, but through God's intervention and prayer, they both have children. One has 3, the other one has 2. They're both here today. It wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if we hadn't prayed and asked God to help us. You see, God creates miracles. He creates miracles. He's a miracle-working God. We just sing about it. He does things no one else can do because He's God. And we're going to pray for every woman that's infertile this morning. If you're here, you want prayer, we're going to pray for you. But not only are those women today who want to have children who can't or haven't been able to yet, I want us to pray for every woman today that's carrying a wound of some kind in your heart. You're wounded. You've been wounded by people, by your children perhaps. Maybe you've been wounded by your own husband. But you're carrying a wound that just every now and then just gnaws at you, and you just hurt. You just hurt. If I could do anything as a pastor, I would take all the hurt away from people. I would take all the hurt away from you, from every person in this room. But today we're going to center in on our mothers and those women who are here today that are carrying a wound of some kind. We're not going to ask you what it is. We're just going to ask you to acknowledge your brokenness by raising your hand in a few minutes. Okay?